Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to Gettin' Savvy in Health, Wealth, and Beauty. Important to note that everything is for entertainment purposes only. Please do speak and meet with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And also, please meet and speak with your GP before making any health or beauty decisions.
All right, Melissa, we are back at it, and we have a fabulous guest joining us,
Thank
David
you.
Chilton. David Chilton, Wealthy Barber, and out with your new book, a more modern, I guess, updated version, correct?
Yeah, it came out in November and so far so good. I've been thrilled with the feedback. Frankly, I was a little nervous because obviously reading is down in general. And in the under 45 market that I target in particular, it's down. And then among men nonfiction readers, it's really down. And so, from all of those perspectives, we were a little bit nervous, but it's gone over great. It's been the number one seller in the country, and the audiobook's doing well. And I've enjoyed being back out there. I've done lots of interviews. I'm starting to speak again. I don't think I'll stick with it too long. I'm old. I'm very old, but I
You're
have really
not.
enjoyed being back at it.
Anyone listening to your voice and or looking at you would not believe you.
That's an AI picture.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I've generated that with AI. So thank you for
Okay.
saying that.
Well, we're going to talk about AI today, but first, let's talk a little bit about, I think everyone's heard of the book, The Wealthy Barber, but to your point, if you're younger today, they may not have read it, the original one. But what was the genesis of it, and what is the modern version of it, and how different is it?
The background story is actually pretty interesting. I mean, the original Wealthy Barber, I'll be the first to admit, didn't really have anything new in it. It was the conventional financial planning wisdom repackaged in a story format to make it more accessible, less intimidating, more inviting, etc. I didn't know what I had in the book. I mean, I was hoping to sell 5 or 10,000 copies. I self-published it. My mother filled the orders out of the garage. My sister was the editor. My father was the copy editor. I mean, this was a family project, and then it took off and sold millions and did what it did. And I think again, it showed that a lot of people are intimidated by this. They do find it off-putting, and if you can make it a little bit more fun, you've won half the battle. And so it came out and had a lot of influence, thankfully. And then recently, I updated it for very different times. I mean, we have new accounts now with the TFSA, the FHSA, et cetera. But also, it's tougher now. Real estate prices, even with the softening recently, are still very high relative to incomes. The cost of living in general is problematic, especially for the bottom 50% of income earners. And so, tackling what do you have to do to try to get ahead was a challenging task. It took me 16 months to do the rewrite. In fact, it's interesting. It took me longer to do the rewrite than the original. There's just
Hmm.
more to discuss and more things that have to be covered off and more subtle nuances and objections and things that can go wrong. So that was a long process. And I have a very unusual writing effort. I test everything as I go with the target demographic. So literally every page is being run by all kinds of people in their 20s and 30s. Did you understand it? What else do you need to know, et cetera? On a positive front, that makes the book flow, and a negative front, it kills the editors. Of course, it takes a lot of time. But again, so far, so good. It's been fun being back.
Hmm. Fascinating. Melissa, do you have anything you want to ask or add? I
Yeah,
certainly do.
I read The Wealthy Barber years ago, like a long time ago. It was one of the first books I read on sort of investing, financial planning. And I remember like being obviously struck by the example you gave of compound interest and how it can really
Right.
make such a difference and how it's so important to start early because the earlier you start, the more years of compounding you have. But I remember after I read the book, I kept thinking, but what about negative compounding? What about negative compounding? What happens if I start early and then it just keeps getting worse and worse? Because it didn't occur to me then that more years than not, the market goes up, right? So that was something that,
Yeah, I mean, the market tends to have a huge upward bias, but there are definitely challenging times, not just off years, but even off 5 to 10 year periods. And so you have to be prepared to put up with that. I mean, volatility is the price you pay to enjoy the higher returns that capitalism through the stock market tends to offer. But it's not easy to fight your way through. I would argue, after watching people manage their money for 4 decades, the best way to do it is to stay oblivious. I find some of the most poorly informed people I meet are the best investors. They buy their index funds, they pay no attention whatsoever. My father has dementia, and he outperforms 92% of all active money managers. He has dementia, but he doesn't pay any
yeah,
attention. He trusts capitalism and the markets to work their wonders. And I think for most of us, that's the best approach.
Hmm.
So that we all been scammed?
No, not really, but I do think that we have paid very high fees for a lot of the active money management in Canada, and I think a lot of people have felt too that they could outperform on their own by doing a lot of research, et cetera, and buying stocks. But all the empirical evidence, all the formal studies say that that's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, obviously, the odd person either lucks into it or because they're extremely skilled and they work at it 8 hours a day, they're able to overcome the challenges. But the vast majority of people, the teachers, the fire people, the nurses, et cetera, they're much better just to trust the markets over the long term, to put up reasonable rates of return, invest in index funds, and focus their energies and all of their time elsewhere.
So it
Well,
sounds then, Dave, that you really are a big believer in buying ETFs, exchange traded funds. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am. I like the all-in-one asset allocation funds that we've seen hit the marketplace in the last 5 and 10 years. They have very low costs, and costs really matter. I mean, the fees you pay for your money management really impact your long-term performance. They're easy to buy. Of course, you know, it's making decisions. They're rebalanced for you. So I think for the vast majority of investors, they form a very important part of the portfolio. But again, financial planning is so much more than just investing. You've got to be properly insured, wills, powers of attorney. And of course, nowadays, the big challenge for young people is they're trying to pay off student debt. They're trying to save for a down payment. Like we've had real estate prices go up 2.5 to 3 times faster than incomes in many parts of the country over the last 30 years, even after the pullback. Holy smokes, try putting together a down payment. You know, a starter home in some of the big cities, Vancouver, Toronto, obviously being the best examples, can be $750,000. Hitting the 20% level, that is very difficult to do. You're talking 150 grand, saving 150,000 after tax. Holy smokes. So the cost of real estate is really a big part of financial planning for younger people now, and you can't just ignore it. You have to address that in all of your teachings.
So how do you think and or advise young people? Because you're not going to just come out and make, 150 grand or 200 at the get go. I don't think real estate prices, I mean, we could easily say we have a bubble here, but how do you what's the advice?
Well, I mean, choose your parents wisely, sadly, has become one of the most important commandments in finance. I mean, if you look at people getting into the real estate market at most of the major markets, they've had parental help a good percentage of cases, but obviously that's not possible for everybody, and it's certainly not desirable for society. So it is tougher now. And it's, by the way, not just the cost of real estate, it's the cost of everything. I mean, look
Yeah.
at the cost of groceries right now. You've got home insurance, auto insurance. So many things are elevating at a very quick pace. It's tough out there. It's very tight. And you're seeing it reflected, by the way, in unusual ways. People are having fewer and fewer kids. That's been a trend that's been in place for a long time, but it's taken a little bit dip further down because again, it's so expensive to have kids and other things are so costly. We're seeing, interestingly, the divorce rate slightly slowing in the last little bit because people are going, we can't afford to get
yeah,
divorced.
Mhm.
Yeah,
exactly.
we can't get out there and both have a home. And so
Yeah.
all of these things are being ripple impacted by the cost of real estate and the cost of living in general. So what you're really advising young people with a book like The Wealthy Barber is, hey, let's be realistic, it's tough. Precisely because it's tough, let's make sure we do the best we can with the money we can set aside. Put it in
Right.
the right place, keep your fees down, try to use common sense, all of those types of things.
So
So
then, Dave,
David,
do you
yeah,
recommend that people hold off? Like, I mean, I would think hold off on getting a home and try to get your money working for you, like pay off your debt and invest some money in a TFSA first before you're looking at automatically rushing to get a home. From what I see, more young people are renting and not even bothering.
Well, and rent can be an okay deal. It's always been a myth that rent is throwing your money away. In fact, there's been some great data put out by some of the Canadians lately. Ben Felix, who's one of the best educators anywhere in the internet marketplace about finances, has come out and said that over the last 10 and 20 years, it probably would have been better to rent for many Canadians,
Yeah.
depending on specifics. So I think you can make a compelling argument for that. And you're right, you want to start taking advantage of the TFSAs and RSPs and so on and so forth. But you mentioned just at the start of that, paying off your debt and non-deductible interest, you want to knock it off, credit card debt especially. I mean, come on, 21, 22% debt. You're not going to earn those rates of return anywhere else. They're guaranteed. They reduce stress. They free up cash flow. They build pride and ownership. They get you started in the right track. That's a no-brainer. Now, if it's 2 and 3 and 4% debt, don't see much 2 and 3 anymore, but say a 4% mortgage, that's a more challenging decision. You know, the other thing, by the way, that gets forgotten too often in Canada is if you work for an employer, that has a group RRSP with a dollar for dollar match or a 50 cent per dollar match, that's actually your best first bet. Funnily enough, the math is even more compelling than paying off a credit card. So I'm constantly hitting that theme with young people. If you have a matching opportunity at work, take full advantage of it.
Yeah. I even wonder though in today's world how many companies and which companies actually offer that. It'd be interesting to take a look.
Yeah, it's still a fairly good percentage of the bigger employers. Obviously, the mid-size and smaller, a lower percentage, but even there, it's all over the map. Some are very generous, some are it's 30 cents on the dollar, but we still have a lot of dollar for dollar matches, interestingly. So a lot of them are using it, Catherine, for retention reasons. They
Right.
want the people to stay because it's so difficult to keep the better employees now. And that's one of the ways that they can keep them happy and keep them on board. So they look at it as having a big benefit, not just a cost.
Mhm.
So explain what that means, Dave. Like, I want to break it down really simply because you'd be surprised how few people even understand what the RRSP matching program is. In fact, I work for one of the things I do is involves some insurance work, and one of the employees asked me if she should take advantage of hers, and she hasn't been sure. She doesn't, So what does that mean?
Yeah, it's straightforward. It's still a retirement savings plan and it's under your name, even though it's called a group RRSP. But when you contribute to it, the company will match you up to a certain percentage of your income, sometimes dollar for dollar, sometimes 50 cents on the dollar. So you put $4,000 in, if they're going dollar for dollar, they throw 4,000 in. Well, now you've got a
So it's
100% return
incentivizing.
on your money
So they're
instantly. And
incentivizing
again,
you to save. Yeah.
yeah, they're incentivizing you to save. They're fostering loyalty among their employee base. They're doing all of those types of things. And of course, we've seen defined benefit pension plans move out of the private industry for the most part. And so this is a defined contribution plan that they're trying to, again, be a part of, foster better goodwill among employees, incentivize you to save, to use your expression. And they're wonderful opportunities for people. And I think lately, by the way, we're seeing more and more people be educated on that front and take full advantage.
Yeah,
David,
because I
it's
think a
it's
lot.
interesting.
And go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting as well is, you know, just tell me if this is your belief system as well. Like, in addition to how difficult things are today to save, is it not just get started? And I say that in the sense that my mom started investing in her 60s and she's now 90 and her portfolio just grew and grew and grew. And that's what we're using to fund her inordinately expensive retirement living, right? That's a fortune. And
It
so
is.
even if you're 60, and part of why Melissa and I are doing this podcast is getting savvy in health and wealth. You want both, right? You don't want to be wealthy with no health and vice versa. And my point to so many people is just start. And I feel like there's so many women who don't invest, find it so intimidating. It's interesting to hear who you think your demographics are or who you were going for. I don't know if it was for women, but I like going back to what we said in terms of, just start a little bit. What do you even think? If somebody has 50 bucks, a lot of people say, well, it's not enough money. What would you advise somebody
$1.
who's never, yeah,
Well, a
dollar
few
wise?
things. First off, please give your mother my number. She sounds like
Ah,
she's doing well and in good
yes.
shape. It's interesting. I thought you were going to say there, by the way, she started at 60, she built some money until 90, and now that's the money we're using to take family vacations. I thought that's where you were headed with some sort of
No.
horrible story, but I'm glad you're using it to help with their own costs. I'm going to
Okay.
get to your question in one moment, but I want to mention something you brought up. You talked about the incredible cost of assisted living, of late life situations. And I think a lot of Canadians are underestimating that. You're seeing a lot of articles come out of both countries, Canada and the States, about how people have oversaved in many instances. They're not having a need for all of their money. Be careful of that. One of two spouses is living to be quite old in most instances, and late life costs are elevating at a much faster than CPI pace. And you've seen it, you've experienced it. It can really be expensive. And so all the balances have to be struck. Going back to the basis of your question, absolutely. Start now. I don't care how small. You build a habit. There's a certain pride that comes along with it. It's interesting. There's a number of things in financial planning, paying off your credit card, doing a spending summary where you chronicle last 3 months. They tend to not only have their own direct impact, but they jumpstart the financial planning process. We can get people to do that. They tend to start doing other things well. In addition, you asked, the primary target demographic of the book. It's always been under 45, but I've always had more female readers than male, about
Hmm.
60-40. And I don't know why that is, but it's kind of always been the case for the books over the years, and I think it is again for the new ones. Some of that again is because a lot of men are not reading nonfiction anymore. They've fallen right off of that, and they're more into TikTok and Instagram and so on and so forth.
So when you say start now, and when you talk about this in the Wealthy Barber Returns, do you give a stepwise approach to what start now means? Does it mean open up, get one of
Yes.
these like Quest Trade or Well Simple or an account like that? Or are you still telling them to go to their bank?
Well, like different answers for different people. But we certainly talk about Quest Trade and Wealth Simple because the platforms are really built to do very cost effective investing for do it yourselfers. And you don't have to get involved in high fee products, so they can add a lot of value. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons the Wealthy Barber has done so well over the years, it is more prescriptive than a lot of others. It kind of says if you're young, here are the various options, probably here are the best steps to take, but it also covers off subtle nuances. And one of the advantages of using the fictional approach set in the barbershop is you have multiple characters and they can represent different scenarios, different people in different situations, and they can all ask the questions and bounce the answers back and forth. And many times the characters in the book are asking questions that I got directly from the test audience. And that's why it tends to feed into what people really want to know. But yeah, it does walk you through what you need to do, what best first steps are. And again, tries to take the intimidation out of all of this. It's interesting. Good financial planning is not easy to do because it requires self discipline and saving, but it actually is fairly easy to understand. The things that work
Mm.
are not that complicated. The tricky stuff that doesn't work, that's really tough for the average person to come to grips with, but it's ineffective. The good things like paying down your non deductible debt, maximizing your TFSA, any of us are capable of grasping that.
So I used to say the same thing. So I've published two books as well, but my books were in diet. And it's the boring stuff that actually works. Exercise more, burn calories, eat smaller portions, eat less, eat lower calories, but that's boring. But that's what actually works. And then it's the nuances that people go off on these tangents that don't actually even make a difference. And you don't do any better on that specialized diet than you do, with the basic approach.
I
Although,
couldn't agree with you more. You said that very well. By the way, just change, you know what I do a lot on my workout front? It's a little bit different. I'm into micro workouts. And so in the course of the day, I keep my push-up stands, for example, on my stairs. Every time I pass them, I do 25 push-ups. So in the course of
Really?
the day, I'll do 150 push-ups. And then I keep my weights in the living room. And when I'm on a conference call, I'll do the farmer's walk and put it on speaker. And so I'll do the farmer's walk for 10 minutes, carrying like 140 pounds or whatever. But I've kind of always done it that way as I go, or I'm on a meeting again on a Zoom call and I'll turn the video off and I'll do stride jumps. And I'm constantly doing those little things in the course of the day. I don't go to a gym. I've done all of that in the last 20 years and I found it to be very effective.
yeah, I totally agree. You have to make it accessible and easy and just even a little bit counts. I always tell people when they ask me how much to work out per week, I tell them in minutes. I said do 150 minutes of consistent cardiovascular exercise per week. And the reason I say minutes is because even if you can only do 10 minutes today, it counts towards your minutes. Because if
Hmm.
people think, oh my God,
Agreed.
I got to work out for an hour, they don't want to do it. But if you think I only have to get on the treadmill for 10 minutes, chances are once you get into it, you stay on it longer. So I think
I
the same
completely
with
agree with
book.
that. No, I love these little micro workouts. And I'm 93 years old. I mean, these have been effective for me,
I'm
for sure.
87. Look
These
how
have really
well
helped.
it's working.
I well, so I was at a really interesting business meeting a week ago, and I was chit chatting with this lady who's 69, and she works out like a fiend. Like she actually really inspired me to when I came back home to really
Right.
get on it, to really get on it. Like I did two workout classes yesterday, and then I also did the
Good for
treadmill.
you.
I'm like, this woman is 69. Like, what am I doing? If you can move your body, you got to move it. And I mean, Melissa's always consistent. Melissa's one muscle, and I actually
Melissa
want
is a machine. Are you kidding? I watch her on Instagram. She is a machine.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually
I
want to.
try, but
I
it's
want to
not,
shadow. No, but Melissa, I want to shadow you for a week and
you
see
Yeah, you'd
how.
be exhausted just watching.
No. Well, David, you don't know this, but a year ago, right now, Melissa came to Aspen with me. She visited me for a couple days. I'm a huge skier. And Melissa knows the story, but she gets so much done in a day. Like I can't, like with the kids and the doctor and the this and the
Yeah,
that and the cosmetics, and then keeping up herself. And so anyway, we were doing first track. So the first people down the mountain, you have to,
yeah.
get permission to do that. And I think we'd had a later dinner the night before, but of course we're up and she takes a 2-minute shower. I'm like, I was like, that's how she does it. That's how
Yeah.
she fits this all in. I'm like in the shower for 15 minutes. So,
Yeah.
so there's all those tricks to the trade that you do, Melissa, that I would like to shadow you for a week and see what happens. But
No, Melissa, you have tremendous self-discipline. You really do. It's quite annoying for the rest of us, actually. I wish you'd
ah,
stop it.
Well,
yeah.
I'll take it, but same time, yeah.
You know what? Just going back for 1 second, David, I wonder if, you are getting such great response to the book because of what we're talking about, which is people. Well, I think it's a couple of items, but one, people know that they have to start making money in addition to their regular job because it's that tough.
Right.
Do you think that that's one of the big drivers?
I do. And you know what? A really strange driver when you get out and speak to all the people buying the book. I thought that TikTok and YouTube and all the social media people out there educating the finfluencers, to use the expression, would hurt me because there's so much competition, but it's helped me. There's so much noise out there that people don't know
Yeah.
whom to trust. And because the wealthy barber's been around for so long, they go, okay, that guy seems like he's on the straight and narrow. He doesn't, sell anything, etc. I think that's helped interestingly. And then again, I go back to the format. I'm not that smart a guy. I've had one good idea in my life. Thank heavens I had it when I was young. But this particular approach to educating, using the story, using the humor, really does tend to work. It
Mm.
pulls people in. They actually like reading the book about personal finance. So I think all of those have come together. But your point's a good one. People recognize it's difficult out there. So they better do 3 or 4 things right. What's the best way to do them? And I think that's what the Wealthy Barber, this version of it's tried to be all about.
So go back for 1 second because, Melissa and I talk a lot about ETFs, and we also do talk about buying individual stocks. I like to do both.
Right.
But you mentioned one that I'm not familiar with, the asset
All in
class.
one asset allocation.
Yeah, what is
Yeah, I mean
that?
those are an ETF that invests you geographically all over the world. And it'll start out with whatever mix based on more or less whichever market cap matches up to the index holdings. So the US could be 30 odd percent, et cetera. Canada often is overweighted because a lot of Canadians investors feel more comfortable with some names they recognize. It also reduces currency risk. And then it rebalances back to those target weightings once every year, 6 months, whatever the fund dictates. I think for a lot of people, it's a one decision fund. They're investing in capitalism, they're investing in worldwide equity markets, they're holding it for 10, 20, and 30 years. My readers are dollar cost averaging in because they're saving on a monthly basis. They don't have lump sums coming into their life. They're not big movie stars or athletes that get hundreds of thousands a year. And I think for most people, that tends to be a very logical, easy, straightforward way to go. Now, it's not perfect. I mean, we're still talking equities here. We're still talking significant volatility. The markets will have prolonged downturns. But if you're young, 20s and 30s, and you keep with the plan, that's a good thing because you're in there picking up more shares at lower prices. And in the long term, I'm confident the markets will do well. Although that being said, AI does scare me a bit. I mean, there's no doubt that if AI influences unemployment to the levels that some very smart people are saying it will, then that is going to change society in many ways. The ripple impact of all of that will be huge. For example, can you imagine real estate and suddenly we spike from the current 6 point something percent unemployment to 15, 16, 18 over the next 36 months to 48 months? That changes so many other things. So that'll be interesting. It's funny, when I was writing the preface to the revised version of the book just before it came out, one of the testers sent me a note and say, what happens if AI comes along and wipes out employment? What would be your position then? And I said, fetal. Like,
Right.
I don't have any easy answers to that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have that kind of high unemployment rate, that will have a ripple impact on every business, on every part of society.
Well, and again, the same dinner that I was at a week ago when I was describing the woman, really interesting people there. And to your point, and you said really smart people are very concerned about AI impacting employment, and this person sitting next to me was. Like, I mean, there are going to be
Right.
multiple jobs wiped out, never coming back. And I guess to your point as well, when you think about an index, maybe you don't want all sectors because some of those sectors are going to be wiped out. If people can't afford or don't have a job, they're not going to be affording many consumer goods, as an example. So we'll have to watch the markets and how we actually do invest because it
Yeah, I
is
mean, I
a
wish we were all smart enough though to be able to figure out ahead of time which sectors were going to be adversely impacted. That's the most challenging part. I mean, even when you go back to say 2000ish, and remember we all accurately predicted the internet was going to boom, but most of the internet stocks at that time, of course, crashed, many going to zero, many of the companies closing right down. It's so tough to pick the winners. And I think that's why I believe in buying the entire haystack, and there'll be needles within it, but
yeah.
needles that probably we can't locate. And you won't have the spectacular returns that the people who concentrate their portfolio and are so skilled they find the winners are. But I think for most people, it's still the better way to go. It's fascinating times right now. I mean, you look at AI, you look at the international order breaking down to some extent. We could be having a war in the Middle East right now. Obviously, the Epstein files. There's just so much going on. And I
Hmm.
think it's created a lot of angst among people. Everywhere you go now, people seem on edge. They seem very concerned about the future. If they have younger kids, if they have grandkids, they're worried about their futures. It's an interesting time and not an all positive one. So it'll be fascinating to watch how all this plays out in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And I wonder too, David, sometimes, my father, if he was alive, he'd be over 100. He was in World War II. And yeah, in some ways, you have to think about what was going on during World War II or the crash of 1929.
Right.
We really are living in very fortunate times. And I think in some ways we forget that and we don't have the perspective that my father would have had.
I
Difficult.
couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I talk about that on stage at all times is that even though we are up against a lot of challenges, we in Canada especially live much better lives than people have throughout history, much better. In fact, by
Yes.
almost every single metric, life is better than it was 20, 40, 100, 200 years ago. I mean, even when we talk about the expensive homes, remember the homes are much bigger now. The homes are much better built. The homes are much nicer. I'm an older
Yeah.
guy, but when I was young, the wind used to come right through the window.
Right.
And I mean, we don't get that type of thing now. And I can go on. I can give you 100 examples. I mean, think about how better cars are now than they were 40 and 50 years ago. Electronics, communication devices, the medical system. There's been lots of positive stats, poverty rates down throughout the world. Now, we've had some unfortunate blips lately in different
Yes.
areas. And a lot of the problems we face right now are real. The income inequality, the wealth inequality issues in the Western world, the Western debt levels are probably my biggest concern. They've really put us in a bind, but the general trends throughout history remain up and to the right. And it's very easy to forget that. And your point about your father is a great one. This guy fought in the World War, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us can't relate to that kind of threat to life, that kind of stress. And so we do lead better lives than a lot of people recognize.
Hmm. And, even some of the Vietnam vets that are still obviously around, right? Think about what they saw, what they
Right.
went through. And I think that sometimes that just gives
No,
you a much better perspective of life. I
it
benefited
does.
because I
I
had a
mean,
good
where you see it,
father.
and where you see it kick in, of course, is anytime any of us, young or old, get sick, especially if you run into a significant health issue, that does tend to give you perspective. You realize a lot of these other things you're focused on aren't as important as you make them out to be. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be striving for improvement or thinking about where is AI tending to take us. But at the end of the day, it's still about friendships, relationships, and all of those types of things. And the balance you two are trying to strike on your podcast, health and wealth, to your point earlier, Catherine, you can't have one without the other. I mean, they
Yeah.
walk hand in hand. There's no such thing as a wealthy, unhealthy person. I mean, there really isn't. I'd, give up everything, obviously, to have my health. And I think most people would.
Hmm. Um, David, how we should maybe talk a little bit about the markets. How involved are you in investing and looking at the markets?
Yeah, very closely. I always have been. I mean, I grew up, in that environment. And then I also do a lot of private company investing, something I wouldn't suggest for your viewers. Most people should not be doing that. It takes a lot of time to do the proper due diligence and you have to have the background, et cetera. But I'm very involved. But that being said, I don't trade the markets. I don't think anybody should. And I tend to follow them almost more for interest sake than I do for investment sake. I practice what I preach with the index funds. I will take on a few more speculative positions than I would recommend my readers do. But again, that's because that's my background. And because I don't socialize much, I tend to have a lot of time to go out and look at those types of opportunities. I'm a bit of a loner and a social loser. And so I tend to study a lot of these things. But for the most part, again, I'll stick to the fact most people shouldn't be doing that.
So when you say that you trade you don't trade the market. When you do buy a speculative stock, you just hold it.
Yeah, I tend to hold it until the story that I bought into plays out. So when I say I don't trade, I mean, I'm not trying to move in and out on a quick
Oh, day
basis at
trade,
all.
like a day.
Like I
Yeah,
wrote a,
I get that.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, there's a couple stocks right now that I've followed for years and I still hold, and I would call them fairly speculative positions, but I'm not moving in and out of them in any way, shape, or form. And again, they're a relatively small percentage of the money that I have because I tend to follow exactly what I preach.
Reach. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question. So when I initially read, like going back 20 years ago when I started reading finance books and investing books, the position was always that you should have, 70-30, 70% stocks, 30% fixed income. And if you were more aggressive, maybe 80% stocks, 20% fixed income. Now it seems like the people I talk to are 100. You should be, if you're young and you don't need that money and you're willing to let it sit, you should be 100% equities. So that's been a hard thing for me to reconcile in I don't know, just in how I think about it. So I know there's some products like you talked about the ETF that's already done for
Right.
you. Well, there's also products that have the splits in them. So do you have
They do.
I don't know, do you have a on that? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think I kind of led the charge accidentally all those years ago, 35, 36 years ago on the 100-0 for younger people. And the Wealthy Barber was definitely 100-0. But I actually think the pendulum's gone too far that way with the over 45 crowd. And I now see a lot of people, including people in my friends group, who have, 80 and 90 and 100% of their wealth at age 65 and 70 in equities, and frankly have done very well following that split at this point. But markets are expensive right now by any historical benchmarks. And we could have a prolonged period of challenging returns or subdued returns. And I hope that they're factoring that in to their forecasts and their planning, working along with their advisor. I'm a big believer for the 45 and up crowd, especially the 50 and up crowd, you need a financial advisor. There are enough things coming at you, enough moving parts in terms of when do you take your CPP? How do you deregister your money from your RSP? When do you start withdrawing from your TFSA, et cetera? You need computer software, you need your expertise. That particular group really benefits from a financial advisor. But going back to your premise, I think a lot of people have maybe gone too far at a later age on that front. Every situation is different, but that worries me a bit. I do believe for a lot of the younger investors, people like my kids, in their early 30s, I have no problem with them having the vast majority of their long-term money that they're setting aside for retirement in equities.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. It's just about knowing when to start, you know, not being all in on equities, as you've
Yeah, and it varies
accruing the
dramatically from person to person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it varies dramatically from situation to situation. I mean, there's so many moving parts as you get older that unfortunately blanket advice doesn't work particularly well. In fact, it's interesting. I've often been asked, why didn't you write The Retiring Barber? So you took that same format that's obviously worked, but you aimed it at the 50, 55, 60, 65 crowd because the way I wrote the book, again, a little more prescriptive, doesn't particularly work well for that crowd. You could do it, but would have to be a different kind of vibe to it, where it was more about, hey, watch out for these things, these are the questions
Mm.
you should be asking, et cetera. A little bit different type of book.
David, that would be a very good book to write because people may have accumulated some wealth. It's probably in their home. They probably haven't had enough spare income because they've got kids and family and trying to do a vacation every once in a while that they probably don't have a great nest egg. And if even if they do, there's all these other aspects to your point that you need to be aware of. And there's
Yeah,
no
and I'll tell you,
prescription
in
for that.
Canada, we're lucky. We have some unbelievably good educators on YouTube for that particular market. Holy smokes, am I impressed? Like we love to
Hmm.
criticize the TikTok influencers, et cetera. But I mentioned Ben Felix earlier, the plain bagel. There's so many good ones in Canada. And I'm pretty hard to impress, to be honest. I'm a little skeptical about all of this. I've been
Yeah.
blown away by how many good ones there are out there. Unfortunately, though, the average person, because they don't have expertise to begin with, has trouble discerning who's the good one, who's the not so good one, who has a vested interest, who's trying to sell me something. Over time, though, the better ones have picked up a lot of momentum, a lot of followers. They've started supporting each other. And I think that's all good. On a positive note for your viewers, I think the financial planning industry, the financial advice industry is on a bit of an upswing now. There are so many good people at the very top, at the heads of the associations, and
You don't
there's a
worry about AI
contagiousness
taking those
now.
jobs?
Pardon me?
You don't worry about AI taking those jobs? I mean, ChatGPT
I
is
think
not
AI
doing
will certainly complement them, but I'll tell you, when I look at a lot of the AI financial plans I see, there's still mistakes in them, but also it's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough without the personal connection, et cetera. Over time, though, they may well. It's not imminent. Like, it's interesting. I tell this story quite frequently, but I asked ChatGPT about 6 months ago 3 questions about RESPs, and I swear one of them was straightforward. It got all three wrong. And so we are a ways away still from it being able to come in and do this. And again, juggle all the balls and make sure they're striking the right balances. But over time, you're right. It very well could come in and take all of those jobs. Who knows where all this is going? It's
You
fantastical in
can
a
have
lot
an
of ways.
agent that has your password to your thing and does your trade for you and like, I don't know, it does scare me the way AI is moving so quickly. Like, I can't tell you, I have a lot of patients now that come into me that they get their blood work now. They can go on Life Labs. They can get their own
Yes.
copy of the blood work. They put it into ChatGPT, a picture, and it completely breaks it down for them. And it does a very good job. I mean, I think they still want that
No, and
human
it's going
touch.
to get better and better because you're
Yeah.
going to also feed your DNA, your family history, your personal history. All of those are going to start being fed in, and the models are getting better. And we're seeing that in a lot of other areas. The area that I see it in most, by the way, in my own business life is the law. More and more
Yeah.
people I know, sharp people, important people at companies are starting to use the LLMs for legal advice because lawyers are so darn expensive. And a lot of my good
Yeah.
friends are lawyers. So I don't mean to be disrespectful, but they're saying, hey, these answers we're getting are rock solid. And what they're doing initially, of course, is checking the answers versus what they're getting from their lawyers. And they're going, wow, they're remarkably similar, both very well done, except one didn't cost me anything. So all of this, again, is going to be fantastic to watch how it plays out. I don't know what to expect.
Well, interestingly as
Mm.
well, if in fact, and the hope is that AI will help people's health, we will potentially live longer, which means we even have to invest more wisely and do it and get started.
That worries me. I mean, I
Yeah.
think if we all start living 10 and 15 and 20 years longer, I mean, the pensions, obviously, the actuarial tables didn't count on that. That'll create some big problems for society. I mean, we talked earlier about long-term care homes. There aren't nearly enough of them. All of these things will be
Yeah.
pressured even more by not just the baby boomers reaching those ages, but again, if we all start living to be 10, 20, and 30 years longer. My father, by
Well,
the
if
way,
they
is
do,
funny. He said at
those
Chris,
people,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if they do continue living longer, I think get rid of the retirement homes, have people live in their house, and give all the unemployed people the extra job of working in the person's house.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at creative solutions like that. They're always easier said than done on the implementation front. My father was funny at the holiday season. He just never going to die. He's made that clear. And he said to all of us, he goes, David, you've been a great son. I love the grandkids. I'm going to miss you all when you pass on. Like, this guy is not going away. So he is going to be the leader of the charge of staying
That's
forever.
funny.
He came up with the idea in his mind.
By the way, there's a couple different companies. There's one in the States and one I know of here, and they are buying up homes, people's homes, and and remodeling them so that the elderly can stay in a home and have other roommates. So that is definitely being done in some private equity circles. The other interesting
Yeah,
aspect of
I'm the wrong
yeah,
guy because I like living alone.
so do I. Well, I'm married, but you know
Yeah,
what I
I'm a
mean.
huge loner. Well, if you like living alone
But
and you're
as you
married, that's a
age,
problem. We need to talk about that, Catherine.
No, you know what? Let me be more clear. I was single for so many years, right? Living in my own condo. And my husband's
Yes,
very easy to live with, but it's different most people can't live
it is.
alone.
No,
So
I mean,
there's
I'm lucky that way. I enjoy living alone, and apparently your husband's going to be living alone again at some point. So give him my best and have him call me, and I'll walk him through how I do it.
But Dave, wouldn't want to continue living on your own rather than going to a retirement home or wouldn't the goal be to stay in your home as long as possible? And if you need it,
Yeah, for me, for sure. I like in the retirement home. I mean, part of me in my own home, I'd stay here for sure. By the way, Melissa, is this the longest? We're probably 40 minutes into this. Is this the longest you've ever gone without working out?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
40 minutes? You haven't done a push up, you haven't lifted a weight. I'm actually worried about you right now.
I think
people I'd like okay, fine. I'll keep the perception that that's the case, but really, I don't. I would say that Catherine, you probably exercise more than me. I just video it every time I do it. That's
oh, right. Well,
yeah,
I want to go back for one second because we always talk about a little bit about markets and stocks and all that, but two two things. Well, we were talking about blood
yeah,
analysis. So that
Yeah,
again, the same dinner, it was really fascinating people that I was with, and one of them goes to this place in California and has his blood withdrawn, and then they take out all the toxins. And I just happened to see Kevin O'Leary on Instagram doing the same thing in Dubai.
right.
So I asked Melissa to actually look at it. First of all, David, I don't know. Are you familiar with this? Do you do it?
I don't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously, I eat at A&W and I
No.
don't do anything. And I've never felt better. No, I'm not going to Dubai to get my blood switched in and out like Kevin. Pretty much if
Okay.
Kevin does it,
so
I try to be a little bit iffy about it.
if
If
you
wait,
and
say that
Dragon
again.
at
If
the same
Kevin
time,
does it, you're
If Kevin does it, I'm a little shaky on it for the most part.
okay. Do you
wait,
know
were
him?
you guys dragons at the same time?
Yeah, remember Kevin and I were on Dragon's Den together.
Okay, I didn't know that.
We were Dragons at the same time, and I also used to do Lang and O'Leary a lot, so I've known him forever.
Okay. He used to come on my program every week.
Yes, no, I remember that. I remember watching.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this thing that he mentioned, he did a whole Instagram post on it, which obviously would get a lot of clicks because it looks interesting, and you think like, what is this?
for sure.
And he sort of framed it in a way that, this is what the wealthy elites are doing. Okay. So essentially, what he's doing is having a procedure called EBOO, which is extracorporeal, meaning outside of your body, blood,
Right,
oxygenation, and ozonation. Okay, so essentially what this means is they put an IV in your vein, they take your blood out, put it through a machine, sort of like a dialyzer, if you think about someone on dialysis,
right,
that filters out the toxins from your blood and the toxins in the waste, and then adds oxygen and medical grade oxygen, which is ozone, back into the blood and then circulates it back into your system. And it does this several times. So you can think of it almost like washing your blood. Okay. And then
right.
in addition to doing this procedure, he then has exosomes infused into his blood. And I think the number I saw was 50 billion exosomes put into his blood. So most people don't even know what it means. Okay. So this is so it's obviously not FDA approved. Okay. So that's why people would go and get something like this
Of course.
done in the UK where there's less regulations. It's interesting because if you think about it, the science of it, you think, well, that sounds good, right? Like, I want the wastes and the toxins taken out of my blood and
Right,
I want it super oxygenated. It sounds great. And then exosomes, if you think about it, there is a lot of studies being done on how they can help with cellular repair. And so it kind of makes sense from that front. So, where the controversy is our own bodies already filter out toxins via our
sure, of course.
kidney and our liver and our immune system and our lungs. Like that's what our bodies do. Okay. So the only reason someone would go on dialysis is if their kidneys have failed, right? So
Right,
then they have to, or they'll die. Well, in this case, Kevin O'Leary, I'm sure I mean, I don't know his health, but I'm sure he's got lungs and kidneys and liver that functions just fine.
yes,
So he's subjecting himself to certain risks associated with this procedure, which I don't think if someone offered it to me for free, I don't think I would not get it done.
Hmm.
I think the price of it is like probably around $50,000, my guess, 20 to $100,000,
More.
unless one of his, maybe they were on Shark Tank. Maybe it's a startup
Yeah,
that he's
probably. Knowing Kev, they probably
maybe.
were. Some deal was there to be struck.
He
There's
got
no doubt
paid to
about
do
that.
it, I'm sure. I don't think he's signing up and paying 50 grand to go get this done, but I
Well,
bet
he
you lots
probably
of
got it in return for the Instagram exposure or whatever, which is a fair deal for
right,
both sides. And again, maybe he didn't, but
totally.
he's a very savvy business
And
person
I'm
that
not
way.
criticizing. Yeah, I'm not criticizing you did, but what I'm saying, if someone said to me, Melissa, do a post on this and I'll give this to you for free, I think I'd still say no. I have a feeling Catherine might say yes.
No,
She can be
I would.
bought. Are you
Get
saying
it?
she can be bought?
No, but I think she's more open to. We've talked about this before when we talked about Bezos, and if we were offered to go on that spaceship up to
Right.
space for free, we go. And I wouldn't go, but I said I think Catherine might go.
I would go on
I just think
Elon's.
You
To
would
be
go on
very clear,
Elon's only.
I would. I would go on Elon's. Yeah, yeah. But I would not
Is
take.
this before or after you? Is this before or after you leave your husband? I'm getting confused now with everything you're up to.
no,
I
Elon
love
would
living with my
definitely
husband.
not be easy to live with. No, don't leave him for Elon.
No, my
No
husband
way.
is so easy to live with. I was just trying to relate it back to when I was living on my own for so long. Like I
Right.
understand you just get in a rhythm on your own.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
no, he has always cleaned my car in the morning of snow. When I was rushing out the door always to go to BNN, makes my coffee. He kind of makes the wheels turn, I must say. We're
That's
very
impressive.
Oh yeah, no,
You
we're
know what?
very it's a
You know
real
what?
partnership.
I'm changing my mind. I might live with your husband.
You what?
Yeah.
You want to live with
I
my
might live with
husband
your husband. Yeah,
and
I'm
me.
changing my mind. Yeah.
And me.
And
Okay.
you. Yeah, the three of us.
There you
That'll be
go.
the group home. That's the group
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
That's it.
Well, by the way, I mean, this sounds crazy, but we built this house and we put our bedroom on the first floor because I just always have myself envisioning myself, wheeling him down the hallway to our master bedroom. Like we really
That's
Sure. That's good
perfect.
thinking,
That's
though.
planning.
Makes sense. Might stay there a very little time.
Yeah, what's that?
And might stay there a little time. That makes perfect sense.
Well, oh, I missed that one. Um,
Oh. But anyhow, so Catherine, would you consider ever? I mean, it's interesting. And you know what else is interesting about the procedure with the exosomes? So, have you ever heard of exosomes?
yeah,
Yes.
but they're
See?
they're either people or plant based, and I wouldn't do the human one, and I don't think the plant one would work as well.
So, I'd be curious. I mean, he didn't say which exosomes he was doing, but I from what I've read and from what I understand, they are derived from usually like umbilical cord
Yeah,
or placental tissue and donated. And they use the mesenchymal stem cells and they put them, I don't know, in some sort of dish or something, and they capture the exosomes are are sort of like little vesicles that the cells release to communicate with each other. So they capture these exosomes and that's what then they infuse. So that it's coming from somebody's placenta or
that's right.
somebody's maybe umbilical
Can you
cord.
please, if you guys have Kevin on your podcast, can you please tell him that his were from my cord?
Okay.
Yeah. Make sure he knows that he got his directly from me.
By the way, I saw Kevin in Muskoka this summer and I asked him to come on our podcast. And he was kind of like hemming and hawing, like he's too busy. If I can get in touch with his assistant, and they can
He's
figure out
very
some
busy.
time. I
Sure.
mean, he did, he was just in a movie, but I was like, really? So I don't know
Yeah.
that we'll have that opportunity, David.
Well,
So,
and
okay.
I haven't seen the movie, but everything I've heard is he did a great job. And I've heard nothing but positive reviews. So good for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Catherine knows I've been a fan. I think he's does a good job of in entertainment.
But
Very
wait,
yeah.
okay, I had to clarify. I love living with my husband, number one. And number two, Melissa, yes,
Mhm.
I might do this procedure, but I wouldn't take it for free. I'd want to go to the best place and I'm happy to pay for it.
Okay, but okay, fine. But Dubai, I'm assuming, is the best place since it's
I
probably.
don't know. There's a place in California. Again, this dinner I went
But
to
if
the
it's
other
not
week,
FDA regulated, how could they? I don't know.
people are doing it.
A lot of things. Exosomes.
Catherine, why don't you do it while you're on the spaceship? Like just combine these big things you're thinking of. I think that's the best move. Let's get them all out of the way.
There you go.
Do you think, okay, that being said, how invested are you in space? And in that, do you really believe that Elon's going to be able to put data centers in space?
Well, I am
I don't know.
invested. I am invested in SpaceX,
Hmm.
which I'm thrilled about. Um, and then David, are you invested in SpaceX or anything space related?
No, and in fact, honestly, I'm not kidding when I say this. I still can't figure out the 2 remotes of this cottage. And so my technologies just aren't great, and I stay away from a lot of that type of stuff. I'm not capable of understanding.
Understood.
The remote is hard. Like yeah. I
Remotes were easier when I was a kid.
Yeah.
100,
Like, now you always
and
have
they
2
don't work.
remotes for everything.
No,
And
because
they never work.
technology doesn't work. No technology.
No.
Okay, it
No.
works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes.
But wait, I wanted to talk about two things real quick. One stock, because I always talk about a stock that I'm looking at, is Palantir, PLTR, and they are widely
Yep.
to have been reported that their technology helped find Osama bin Laden. That's just
Right.
kind of the top one liner. And that stock is significantly pulled back. Melissa, you and I have talked about this because of the pullback in software. There's the concern that AI is going to make many, many software companies obsolete. This actually also got pulled down, but I think that this might be one to take a look at. So I've never loved the
I think
valuation with it.
well, I think in that case, it wasn't as much tied into the software correction because they're more AI than they are traditional software. I think a lot of it was just the valuation so stretched that I think it was due for a bit of a pullback, as so many were. But it's a tough one to evaluate. I mean, again, by conventional metrics, it's extremely expensive
Yep.
to have the expertise to know whether what they're doing is truly going to be sustainable, whether it can fight off competition. Then, of course, some people don't love some of what they're doing, and they take a lot of criticism. All of that is so tricky, and again, it's why I'm always guarded about those types of situations. I'm not bright enough to figure out all of these moving parts and figure out whether or not they will, in fact, offer a good return going forward.
Yeah, that's all very, very fair. I guess you know, if for me, because I do not like buying high multiple stocks, which this obviously is, um, at the end of the day, you're really buying into management and their expertise, and they've done a phenomenal job. And sometimes that's how
They
you
have,
buy
but
a
I mean,
stock.
valuations still matter. And so the
I know.
management is there, whether the stock is valued at X or 5X. And I mean, that's why all of this, again, is so tricky. If you go back to the high flyers of the internet era, again, most of them crashed, even though
Yep.
the internet ended up becoming an even bigger part of our lives than the optimists predicted at that time. And so, again, watching the hyperscalers, watching the Palantirs, all of it's going to be fascinating going forward.
Hmm. One other area that I'm watching, but it is private markets right now, which again, isn't necessarily for this audience at all, but I think it's interesting because the masses are participating, and that's the prediction markets. So the poly markets
Yep.
and
Fascinating.
Kelshis
So
of
I
the
love it.
world. Why do you love it? I love it, but
Well,
why do
I,
you love
I
it?
I love probabilistic thinking. I like everything about those markets. I think, unfortunately, we've gamblified investing. And we're now seeing young males in particular, 38 and under, putting such a disproportion of their monies into high risk securities. Some people argue it's testosterone driven. Other people counter because it is so difficult to get ahead. They feel they have to take more aggressive stances and chances. But at the end of the day, most aren't faring particularly well. But the poly markets are very interesting, just how they've come together, how big a player they've suddenly become, how many people are involved. I find it all really interesting, but I don't play them at all. I don't place bets on either side of it, but I watch that marketplace very, very closely. I find all of this riveting, to be perfectly honest.
I
Like, I can
I
stay up
don't
until 4 in the morning reading.
Okay, but
Hmm.
I don't understand it because I went on Polymarket and I was actually gonna just try because I always like to try something so I can understand it. Just a
Yes.
small, but it says it's illegal in Ontario.
In
So
Ontario, yeah, maybe here. You can still watch it, but you may not be able to place to place a bet's not the right expression.
and then I think, they talk about how all the sports betting sites like FanDuel and forget what the other one is are down because Polymarket's taking such a large share of their market. So if you talk about
Right.
gambling, I just feel like it's gambling that's even more rigged. Like you can cheat. So how do you know that somebody's not making a market on something they have insider information on?
Well,
It,
they
Oh,
do.
no, and I think that's happening all the time in poly markets. I mean, I think that's very much a part of things. And again, that's another reason why I'm very gun shy about getting involved in all of that.
Like, it's interesting to watch so you can see what they're predicting, and then you can kinda get an idea of how things might go. It's like a
Well,
better yeah,
by the way, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange, they made a
Yep.
$2.1 billion investment in Polymarket back in October. And I read the press release, and from my understanding, it's almost as though the the betting in Polymarket is so real time that institutional investors can use what they're seeing and learning from it as it relates to making investments or placing a trade.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, wisdom of the crowds. And I mean,
Yes.
in general, again, the wisdom of the crowds is a very, very good predictor relative to others. And you're absolutely right. You're seeing more and more people try to harness the knowledge you can get from following markets. They take their investment approaches to some extent. Now, the more people that do that, a lot of the times those gains get arbitraged away. And again, all of this is very complicated stuff, but it's very interesting.
There was
I
a
did not
bet.
see our conversation going towards blood transfusions and poly markets. This has really
All right,
moved
well, you know
off
not
the
what?
getting
typical pay
savvy.
yourself
That's why
first.
we'd have a good podcast here.
Yeah. Okay, well then, we probably should start to wrap it. I get, the I'll well, um just to kind of bring it full circle, when we were talking about how fortunate we are, to live in this time, these times versus 50 years ago, 200 years ago, what have you. And to your point, David, on every metric, everybody's actually doing better, even though there definitely are some massive issues.
Right.
I'm very, very concerned about the K economy.
For
I'm
sure.
very concerned about the hollowing out of the middle class. There's many things to be concerned about. Having said that, I was able to early in my career listen to Sir John Templeton, so the Templeton Mutual Funds, which are very
John
renowned.
Templeton gave me the cover quote for the original Wealthy Barber.
What?
And I phoned his house in the Bahamas and he
Yeah.
answered his own phone. And I said, I'm looking for John Templeton. And he said, This is John Templeton. And I told him the background of the Wealthy Barber. He said, Send it to me. He read the whole book and he wrote me the cover quote.
What was the quote?
Which was
Something like, this is a great book if you want to learn the basics of personal finance or whatever. And it was all over the American edition of the book. He was such a gentleman to deal with. I'm still to this day shocked he answered his own phone because at that point, as you remember, he was literally the most famous name in the world of investing. He and Buffett.
Yeah.
Buffett, of
Yes.
course, stayed up there, and Templeton got older, passed away, etc. But yeah, he answered his own phone and ended up giving me the cover quote. It was amazing.
Amazing. That's a great story, and I was able to uh, hear him speak at a luncheon when I just started my career, and I thought, "Oh, this is great. He's going to talk about investing and where he would invest." None of the speech had nothing to do with investing. It had everything to do with how fortunate we are, and kind of
Yes.
just what I was talking about. And then he ended by saying, any day you can get out of bed and put 2 feet on the floor is a great day.
No, that's
And
true.
I
And it's interesting you bring it up because he was one of the first people to do exactly what you're describing, talk about perspective, improvement in society. You know what else he used to speak a lot about was time management and getting the most out of your day. So he often would kind of go off what you would expect, which is investing, and go different directions. And he was very eloquent and very insightful, just a very sharp guy, and of course, a gentleman.
very much a gentleman and very faith-based. What did he
Yes,
say
very.
about what did he say about time management? I always think about that.
2 minute showers. That's what
What?
he said.
Yeah, I don't remember all the
Two
details,
minute
but in fact,
showers.
yeah, like 2 minute showers exactly. You know what I do? Don't shower at all.
Right.
Yeah, I just
Even
never
better.
shower, and I've saved a lot. That's one of the reasons why I live alone, Melissa. I haven't showered in 4 years. So this is a problem. This is a problem. But he basically had a lot of these Stephen Covey approaches, although not laid out in the fashion that Stephen Covey did in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. By the way, if you have time for another author story, one of the big thrills of my career, like one of the biggest, was back in, I think it was 90 or 91. I got a call at my house. Remember, it was landlines. It was no cell, and it was Stephen Covey.
Hmm.
And he called the house. He'd gotten the number from someone in Canada, and he said, The book is out, 7 Habits. I think it was in 18 countries. I'm making up the number. We're number one in 17 of them. The only country we're not number one and we can't crack through is Canada, where we're number two. I just wanted to say hi and see what the Wealthy Barber was all about. The guy just called me up out of the blue. It was fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Hmm. What were you going to say though about Sir John Templeton and time management?
Again, it was a lot of the Stephen Covey, like
Oh,
begin
okay.
with, an end in mind, et cetera, and all of those types of things. I remember one of the things he pushed very aggressively was wherever you go, have a book with you. So if you are delayed at a meeting, you can read a book. If you are delayed in traffic, you could that kind of thing. And I liked a lot of the stuff he did along those lines. I mean, I was a huge John Templeton fan. I would say early in my career is one of my heroes.
Mm-hmm. What's before we wrap it though, what's one of your habits that you think has benefited you dramatically?
I don't know. I mean, I mentioned earlier the micro workouts. I think in the last 10 years of my life, those have made a huge difference. But I read a tremendous amount. I've really enjoyed reading. I try to walk and get a lot of fresh air. I'm outside a lot. I think all of those kinds of common sense basics that are preached make a big difference. I've been lucky to keep a lot of the same friend groups I had right back to elementary school. And that keeps you very grounded and very connected. To be honest with you, Catherine, I'm one of the luckiest, if not the luckiest person I've ever met. I had great parents. I've had great friends. I've been extremely healthy. I lucked into a good career. I mean, I'm a very, very fortunate guy.
Hmm. And yet you live alone.
And I live
He's
alone.
lucky.
Yes, I
I
do.
told you he's lucky. Most guys listen, he is the luckiest guy in the world.
Oh yeah.
I
You
do
don't have
have
a
I
wife
do have a
telling you what to
dog.
do. What's that?
No, I have a dog. I have a dog. He's
Yeah.
one of the most poorly behaved dogs in the world. And so Jasper dog. And I do have a partner, but we don't live together.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I
Well,
was kidding
Seti,
about not showering. I do on occasion shower. I want to just go on record as saying that.
Good. Keep
well,
it up.
speaking of this, one of the things I
Yeah, keep it up.
keep it up. Um, one of the things that you might want to try if you don't like showers, my husband and I always have baths together.
I am not having a bath with your husband. What is wrong with you? I
You
don't
and your
even know this
partner have
guy.
a
Let's
bath.
slow it down here.
You and your
Let's slow it
partner.
down
I
about it.
I
Oh,
keep
my
telling
partner. I
Melissa.
thought you meant my here. I thought you meant your husband was involved, and
That
I
would
was
never
uncomfortable
gonna
with that.
happen.
Although he does sound wonderful.
It would
It's
just
Yeah,
never.
your
wonderful.
husband does sound wonderful.
But I tell
Mm.
Melissa she should have a bath with her husband. And
That's never gonna happen.
Well, she's so quick in and out of the clean situation. 2 minutes. I don't think it's worth his while.
that's
And you know her, Catherine. If you had a bath with Lisa, she'd be doing push-ups in the bathtub,
true. It would not
right?
be
I mean, she's just
relaxing.
so obsessed with working out. Yeah, it wouldn't work. There'd be a
Okay.
lot of displacement and spillage.
I just yeah,
Okay, I've got to
and
go, but
spills.
that was
Okay,
very
we gotta
enjoyable,
go.
you guys, and I really, really like seeing both of you. It was fun.
Thank you. When you're in Toronto, let us know.
I will. Yeah, we'll all get together. I want to meet your partners. I'd really like to ask them some questions.
Okay.
Now I'm afraid it'll just be the three of us, David. Okay.
All right, be
Okay.
well.
Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Bye.